Hello everyone, this is Daniel Diaz, and this is the user installation and maintenance video for the FFQR system. The actual project space in Bitbucket can be divided into one repository for documentation and 4 repositories of code. 2 microservices written in Java, questionnaire service and food item service. The web application for the questionnaire itself, written in Angular, and a repository with Docker containers and Docker compose file to spin up the entire environment as it was at the end of our spring 2019 term version 0. So in um, in an FFQ folder, I have all those repositories cloned locally on my machine: the food item service, the questionnaire web application, and now I'm going to get into the directory of the questionnaire service. So to run the application as a standalone, both the services would be Maven Spring Boot run, and this will spin up the application locally. As we see here, the context path is /FFQ, and for the questionnaire service, the port is 9080. For the food item service is 9090. This is documented in the README. So right now, if I query the endpoint for all the questionnaires, I'll get back an empty array because there are no questionnaires loaded up in the database. If I look at my Mongo 3T, the questionnaires database is 0. So to load up the database with initial data, we have a run command line argument that we can supply in the following way. The -d command, Mongo questionnaires load equals true. By passing in this argument, we're stating that we're going to load the questionnaire service with an initial set of 25 valid questionnaires. Now, as you see the other videos, you'll see that this is just a temporary solution to have some questionnaires to test with, because in order to test the web application, we need a valid questionnaire. So this is going to load questionnaires valid-1 through valid-25 by passing in this argument. And we see here at the bottom, after the application has loaded, that a total of 25 items added to questionnaires collection. If we query the collection again, we have 25 of them. So now we have the questionnaire service running. We'll do the same now for the food item service. Here, if I query the API via Postman, again, it's running on localhost 9080, context path FFQ, and the actual endpoint for all the questionnaires is questionnaires. Send, and now I get it back. Now the food item service runs on 9090, endpoint food items for all the food items. Right now we're still going to get a no response since the service isn't running. So now I'm in the food item service directory. This correlates to this repository. The one we just showed was this repository. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now we also have a runtime argument to load the database with the food items as well. And this will load all the nutrient lists and the food items based on Dr. Palacios' Excel sheet. Instructions how to update this algorithm and the Excel sheet is listed in the README of that repository. So here we're going to pass again Mongo load food items load equals true. And it'll run the service. 84 items added to the nutrient list, and 54 food items were added to the food items collection. Food items is loaded, nutrient list is loaded. If I query this endpoint, I'll get all the food items. Now each food item, if it has only one food type, this nutrient list ID will connect it to the nutrients. That's mostly used for calculation. Let's see if I find one easily. Here we have a type name regular and a type name whole grain and nutrient lists that are specific to each of those types. So if there isn't just one type, this food types array will link the nutrients to this item via this nutrient list ID. And more of this could be found in the final deliverable. But now we have both services running locally in two separate terminal windows. Now I want to go ahead and launch the questionnaire web application. Now this is an Angular application, so in order to run this, it's just ng serve. Now for this to run, the two services need to be running because it's going to try to hit that database for both of those. So it'd be crucial to have both of those services running before you run this web application. Okay, so that should be compiled and ready to go. Oops. So if I open up a browser, and I go to localhost 4200, I should have the web application running. And it validated valid1 was a correct back questionnaire ID through the questionnaire service we have run up, and it's pulling all this food item data from the food item service. So that's to get everything up and running. I'm going to go ahead and shut down all three so I can show how to spin up the entire environment via the Docker Compose Containers repository. So here I've shut all of these off. The endpoint shouldn't work. And the site isn't working. So here we have FFQR Container Spring 2019. That's the one we're going to spin up both services, load them with data, and run the web application all with one command. Once we're in the containers, this has a Docker Compose file that'll compose the food service and the questionnaire service Docker files, which are hosted inside this repository, and pull the image for the web application from Docker Hub. We would need to be logged in to the FIU FFQR account, and you can find that information in the Confluence team page, specifically the private page. So first I want to make sure that Docker's running. If I don't see the little whale icon up here steadily loaded with containers, this won't work because it needs Docker to be running. Instructions on how to install Docker are listed in the README of this repository. Our wishlist video will go into more detail, specifically in the section of our final deliverable, but it would be a great idea that we didn't get to make a Docker Compose file for just the two food services, which can be extracted almost from here directly and included with the web application repository so that local instances can be spun up for testing easier in that way. So once we have the Docker running, I want to make sure I'm signed into Docker. Oh no, this is built, so I'll go ahead and sign them in the background. So here we see the loading of the food items, loading of the questionnaires. Food items are complete. And once we see that the web application has compiled successfully, then we'll be able to run the entire environment. There we go. Compiled successfully. These services should be up again. And this is up again too. And that's the end of the user installation and maintenance video. Thank you.